Hey there. We hope that you are having a great day. We are Nathaniel and Amy White with the Homemade Family. You are catching us in the middle of a series of 4 keys to great relationship. Nathaniel and I are spending these 4 weeks sharing the kind of the 4 keys that have really helped us build a very strong marriage. Some of them actually help save our marriage. So we are on key number 2 today, but if you missed key number 1, which was verbalizer feeler, absolutely transformed our marriage, you can catch that last week's episode by going to www.thehomemadefamily.com and clicking on the podcasts, watch the video there. Or you can catch it on YouTube, search The Homemade Family, Nathaniel and Amy White, or anywhere where podcasts are found, search for Insight Now, The Homemade Family. So we are continuing our talk on 4 keys to great relationships, not just marriage relationships, but also these are great tools for great relationships with your kids or other people that you're with commonly. So today's topic is the law of pursuit. We are going to be talking about pursuit and how to do that and what it is and how that's a great key to keeping healthy relationships.
Yes. So the law of pursuit says that whatever you pursue, you will develop passion for. And the beauty of this is it debunks a common lie or myth that a lot of us have been taught about relationships, or maybe that we assume about relationships, that it's that we pursue things because we're passionate about them. Like, hey, I kind of was into you, therefore I pursued you for a relationship. Like I asked you for a date because I thought there was maybe something special there. The truth is, it can start with some level of interest, but our passion for someone doesn't grow because we fell in love like it was this accident that happened. It happened because we were pursuing somebody. So there's kind of 2 things on this just to round out the introduction. One is I love something that Chris Valentin says about this, that if you just fell in love, falling is an accident. And if you had that accident once, like there's nothing in that to keep you in love with somebody. It's completely out of your control, out of your hands, out of your ability to influence. You could fall out of love. You could fall in love with somebody else, and you're just a victim of the whims of your emotions. And that obviously isn't a path forward towards healthy relationships or thriving marriages or thriving relationships, connection with our kids or with friends that we care about, or any of those kinds of things. And so it's important for us to understand we do have influence over the passion that we feel towards somebody. What this also does is that this isn't just like, oh yeah, love is a choice where you're going to grit your teeth. And even though your marriage is getting colder and colder, you're like, I'm going to choose to love you, even though it's extremely painful. It's actually, this gives you the ability to stir up the fire and the passion, that it's not on you wooing me, it's on me wooing my own heart for you.
Yep.
And
love is a choice.
Love is a choice.
And it can become a lot easier if we have some of these keys and tools to keep it more passionate and easier to just keep flowing in it.
So just to give a couple of examples that will help you see that this really is true. Sports teams are a great example because sports teams have rabid, wild, crazy fan bases. And I mean, these are millions of people who watch the games, pay money to attend games, to upgrade their own home theater systems, to buy the jerseys and the hats and the whatever other products. Like there are billions of dollars spent on sports teams, and for the most part, those sports teams don't know a single one of their fans by name. Like maybe a very, very select few are known by name because they are the most wild, the most over the top, the most crazy for their team. But for the most part, there are thousands and thousands, if not millions, of fans of each of these teams. and they have no idea that you exist. And I have seen this in my own life. I grow more passionate about the teams I follow when I make a point of watching their games, when I make time for that, when I make a point of reading up about the games or reading articles on the teams, all of those kinds of things. Those acts of pursuit actually cause me to feel more anxiety about, are they winning? Are they losing? How's the game going? In other words, it increases my passion for the team. So that's just examples. But the rest of our time, we're going to give you tools for how you can pursue your spouse or other key relationships on purpose.
Yep. So the first one is having a common pursuit. This is something that we do together, or that keeps us moving in the same direction in life. Like there, we have this example of our kids just did a community play. And because they were a part of the community play, they got to meet a bunch of new people. And they were all working to build the same thing, doing the same thing, going the same direction, hoping for the same outcome. And they developed some really quality relationships through that because they had a common vision, they had a common purpose, and they had a common pursuit. So having that common pursuit actually gives us space to develop relationship with each other. Mm-hmm. Now we can do this in our homes with our family, but specifically with our spouse. So there are lots of ways to build a common pursuit. With Nathaniel and I, we work together. We co-educate our kids, we work in the same job. We're always at this, we live together. We do everything in life together. So it's really easy for us. But what about when you work outside of the home and, your husband has one job, he's going one direction, you have your job, you're going the other direction, your kids are in school and they have their sports. And so there's not a common pursuit. Everybody kind of seems to be on their own field, doing their own thing, pursuing their own thing. That is the prime opportunity for people to grow apart from each other and to actually become closer to coworkers and sports people and students at school. So we have a list of just some things that can help you to stay on a common pursuit with your spouse and with your family.
Right. So really anything that you are able to do together that gets you dreaming together, thinking together, planning together, working together, those can all be things that become common pursuits that bring you together emotionally, that become a pursuit that draws you together internally. So, hey, go garden together, decorate your house together, do a remodeling project together. You can travel together. You can serve in church together. Even just attending church, making it a point and a purpose. We're going to do this together every single week. That this is something we do. We go to church together. But if you go beyond that, even to, we're going to serve together in church. And that doesn't even have to mean like, oh, you're both on worship team together. Maybe one of you just really does not have any musical abilities and you can't do that. Okay, that's fine. One of you can do worship team. The others maybe serving as greeter or serving in kids ministry or whatever. But you're still then engaging in the same purpose, the same mission. You're still drawing your hearts towards that same goal. Or maybe you lead a home group together or whatever. Like there's lots of things that you can do. One of the things that we do that is a carryover from my family growing up is Friday night is pizza and movie night. It is, we are going, and it doesn't always work out that we can do it on Friday night. We try to keep Friday night special. But like tonight, we got a little mini men's retreat. So I will be gone with my boys. It'll be just Amy and Adonaiah. And I think actually Simeon is like, I'm peopled out from traveling and having a conference last weekend. I might stay home too. But whatever, we'll have pizza and movie night tomorrow night. So some of these things can be flexible, but we make it a priority. Meal times, we eat together. This is a priority. These things that continue, that we pursue together, that bring us together, they actually do bring us together.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So just real quick recap on that common pursuit. there are 3 kind of main categories that we came up with that you can choose items to pursue together. One is your hobbies. I mean, that can be sports. Maybe your whole family is really into football, and so you go to football games and you do fantasy football and you watch the football things, and you just really make this a family common pursuit, or maybe your kids are in sports. So any hobbies. He was talking about gardening or doing things. The other category then is causes. Like, you guys could become passionate as a family to pursue feeding the poor and the hungry, or doing service projects around town, or Feed My Starving Children's a great one, to find actual causes to get behind as a family. Even just reducing your plastic intake and things like this. Just make it a whole family deal where you're all working on the same cause and pursue that together. And then the other category really is dreaming together. You guys can all be working in different jobs as long as your end vision is still the same. Excuse me. And so dreaming together, spending the time to dream together. So common pursuit.
I just want to add one little thing on the common pursuit, particularly like dreaming together. Okay. So retirement goals, having a financial plan, these kinds of things, like, okay, well, you've got your job and I've got my job, but we're actually pooling the money together. It's not like this is my income and your income. This is our income. And and each of us is serving something bigger than ourselves. So that my career is not about my career. It's about family goals and our goals together as a couple. So the career isn't something that separates us. It's something that actually brings us together. So I'm working for you even when I'm apart from you. So these are little things that just, again, it can bring us together. And I want to say that I wanted to give that example specifically because statistically speaking, one of the most common times when divorce happens in marriage, it's like within the first 5 to 7 years, and then at 20 to 25 years are the 2 most common windows when divorce happens statistically in America. And I think that the reason behind that is basically like the kids leave the house, and all of a sudden that thing that forced us into common pursuit is gone. And we realize we have no connection. We have no relationship. We have nothing in common. And I'm like, oh, well, who are you again? And oh, by the way, I actually feel a lot closer to these other people that I've been working with for years in my career or my job or my hobby. While you've gone and done your thing, there's been nothing to bring us together. And so this is something that really powerfully protects marriages, protects relationships, especially through those transition periods where some of these naturally decrease in your life.
Yep. Okay. So tool number 2 for helping you to pursue your spouse is something that we call first fruits. First fruits is whenever you have an experience, the first time that you relay that information to somebody, there's a lot of emotion attached to it, and it's really hyped up, but then you tell the second person and it's a little less emotional, and a third and a fourth, and finally you're telling it as if it was old news, right? So one of the ways that we guard and protect our relationship and help to sow specifically into pursuing each other is that we really make sure to only share those experiences. We share them first with our spouse. So if you are like out on a retreat and something amazing happens, you call your spouse first, not your best friend or not the person walking through the office, and tell them before you tell anybody else. Sometimes that can be hard because all of a sudden, you've had this amazing experience happen, and you go into the break room and 5 friends are there, and you want to go, la, 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 because it all feels really big. But hold it for just a minute. Call and tell your spouse first. This is the same thing when pursuing our children with these things too, is like they are having these experiences at school or at play practice for us. And Nathaniel and I would both get in the car and drive to pick them up because we didn't want to miss all the first fruits. When they come out of those experiences, they're filled up. They had all these things to share. And I didn't want to be the second one in line to receive it, because once you get all the first initial emotion out, it was a lesser deal the second time that you tell it.
Right. Well, and oftentimes if your kids are anything like ours, the second, or if you're like our kids, the second time that they shared things, they wouldn't even share half of what they shared the first time.
Yeah.
It was like the first time they're tripping over each other, talking at the same time. You're having to work to decipher, to slow them down, to like, hey, I can only listen to one of you at a time. And you're actually having to put work in to slow them down. But if you want to get them like 15 minutes later, they're now home. They've already shared their full wad of, this is what happened at practice today. And now you're like, hey, what happened to practice today? And they're like, oh, it was good. And so these are the things that this is first fruits. It is obviously where there's, even just from the sharing of that information, there's a building of a connection, a deepening of a connection. How can I connect to you if I don't even know what's been going on? If I don't even know what's happening, how there's nothing there to connect with, right? So even just having that information from somebody sharing first fruits with you, it's like, oh, now I have something to relate with, something to talk with you about, something to connect with you on. So yeah, I love what Amy was saying. You're at work, you get a raise, you get a promotion, you get an attaboy, an attagirl, just a bonus, whatever, something good happens. You met your goal for the month when you're only 2/3 of the way through the month, and it's like, woohoo, this is really awesome. Whatever it is, just share that with your spouse first, instead of with like she said, coworkers. I just wanted to try to put some specific practical kinds of examples, and hopefully that works for you guys.
Yeah. And for our faith-filled followers here too, anytime the Lord is giving you new and fresh revelation, make sure that goes to your spouse and your family first before it goes out to everybody else. Like, right. You get these things and the Lord's speaking to you. Hi, Dave Champion. He says, hi guys. It's good to see you, Dave. Yeah. So just making sure that you're sharing like the first experiences. And part of this is being intentional too, to be there when your spouse comes home or your kids come home, or connecting with them at the end of the night and asking them specifically about certain things that are going on in their life. I always ask my kids like, hey, what was the highlight of your day, or what really made you feel something emotional today? And allowing them to have that time. So it's, in the busyness of schedules, it's easy to kind of put people aside or run off, or when your kid comes in and they are full of emotion and chatter, it's like, oh, I just got home from work and I'm really tired. But, take that extra moment just to sit and listen, because that first fruits, sharing that emotional connection of a new experience or something, really does deepen the relationship and help with pursuit.
Yeah, it's treasure.
All right.
And if you're the introvert or the internalizer, make a choice. We have one particular child who's very quiet normally and naturally. And we're having to work with him on the process of, hey, it's not that you don't know what to say or you're not articulate. It's not that you don't have words. It's just things are moving through your mind or your insides so quickly that words are too slow for what you're feeling. And so we're having to help him grab onto something, look at it internally long enough that words can form around it, and make the choice, I'm going to communicate about this. Yes, there's other things, but I can get to those later. I'm going to communicate on this. And because otherwise, we never know what's going on. And so if that's you, or if that's your spouse, if that's your kids, then just recognize this way of pursuing it really actually is important, and you're going to need to make a choice to engage with it.
All right. Our next way that we pursue our spouse is with our thought life. What are you thinking about?
Amy's so good with this
one. Especially towards your spouse. The Lord told me that before we got married, or while we were engaged, or really early in my marriage, I don't know, the Lord was speaking to me one day and he said, Amy, the health of your marriage starts in your mind. And I will tell you that this has been a journey of intentionally pursuing and captivating thoughts, and to keep my thought life towards my husband good, so that we could have a strong, healthy marriage. because your brain is actually wired to our brains are kind of lazy. They just want the easiest path,
Right.
And so they think on the most traveled thought ways, the most traveled neural pathways. And so if you are used to seeing that your husband always misses taking out the trash, or they always leave their underwear on the floor, your brain is also wired to see the thing that you see most frequently and to reinforce that belief by showing it to you over and over.
Right.
And so
it can actually make you blind to the good things that are going on.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that there aren't good things going on. Probably there are good things going on, but because what you're feeding on is creating a well-worn, well-traveled pathway towards the negative that is going on, it's like it is making that the only thing you see, so that it can become a negative fueling fire of anger and disappointment or bitterness or whatever. Like, my husband is just a lazy, no good, blah, 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 blah. And all I feel when I think about my spouse is the things that bother me, because that's all I've let myself feed on.
Yes.
But the opposite also works, where if you intentionally cultivate those roadways towards seeing the good things, then naturally that's what you're going to tend to see just naturally.
Yep.
And until it's actually harder to see the bad things.
So here are a few keys to help you actually meditate on and create new neural pathways in your brain so that you can see your husband's or your wife's good, or your child's good, instead of the place where your child is repeatedly failing.
Good.
Or your own good. Yes. So you can't just tell a thought not to be there. You actually have to replace the thought with a new thought. So when we have couples come to us who are in a bad place in their relationship, like fighting, disconnected, the first thing that we do is we're like, okay, what is something that you love about your spouse? What's something that they do well that you admire? What are their features that you find most attractive? What about their character that you find most attractive? And then you write those down, and then you have to do kind of three things as the way that you learn it. You look at it, you say it out loud, and you think about it. You hear it, and then you practice it over and over. So I have this one post where I saw Nathaniel out mowing the yard, and I was looking at him mowing the yard, and I just began to practice this. My husband is so handsome. He's so helpful. He's such a good dad. And I just began rehearsing these things over and over and over in my mind until it just happens naturally. Every single time I look at my husband, I say something to myself about how his eyes look or about his big muscles, And then we begin to declare these things out loud. Tell them what you're thinking about them, And so the practice of meditation is to think on the same thing over and over, and to declare and say the same thing over and over until it just becomes a natural part of the way that we see and the way that we think.
Yeah, that's so good.
Want to add to that?
I want to add to this because obviously this doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden married to a perfect person who never makes any mistakes and there's not any bad to see. It just means that's not what you're feeding on. And there is still room, even while you're feeding yourself regularly on a steady diet of the good things your spouse does, there is still room to see, hey, this actually is really unhealthy, or this actually is concerning to me, or this actually is hurtful when you do this to me, or when you just do this, or, hey, I think that this is an area that you're blind in that I really wish you would see better. All of those things, those are still totally on the table. You can have those conversations. You can still confront your spouse or your children or your best friend, whoever this applies to. You can still confront them about things in their life, and they need you to. There's another thing Chris Valentin talks about that I've heard him talk about, but he's like, there's a whole bunch of us, most of us, we have a front room and there's an elephant in the front room stinking the place up and breaking things, but we decorate the front room to look like a jungle so that it looks like the elephant belongs. And we actually don't even realize that it's there because the nature of deception is it's deceiving. And so we actually need people in our lives, trusted voices who can come to us. And we've given this permission to them that they can come to us and say, hey, are you aware your living room smells like elephant dung? Like, you need to get rid of this elephant in your front room. And you're like, wait, really? Like, I thought this was normal. No, this is not normal. Actually, it's unhealthy. And we can totally help you. Like, we're here with you. We love you. We care about you, but you're better than this. And we want to help you rise above this. Things like that. Those are actually needed conversations to happen.
Yeah. One more thing about guarding our thought life about our spouse too is that we need to have a pretty strong filter up that we would begin to catch these things too when they're happening. But very often, moms especially will get together and then we'll start talking about, the stupid things that our husband did or the stupid thing that our kid did. And the next thing you know, every mom's like, really? Yours did that? Well, my kid did this and my kid did that, or my spouse did this and my spouse did that. And pretty soon you're just kind of having this wonderful, funny bash session, only it's not really funny because they become the things that you are feeding on and saying about your spouse, and that becomes your thought life and your meditation. And then when you go home, you see your spouse doing it again and it becomes a bigger offense. And so really being aware, especially ladies, when you're together with all the other ladies and moms, to guard your thought, not just your thought life, but what bandwagons you're jumping on and not allowing those things to come out of your mouth. In fact, when you are in those situations, I would challenge you to find something positive to say that your spouse does well, or that your child does well, or that you do well, and watch how the conversation changes.
Or dies.
Or dies. Like, people
Amy
are
has done this so many times where it's like, here's the conversation's trajectory.
And it's like starting to go down,
it hits
down,
her,
down.
And she's like, actually, my husband is really amazing.
He's so
he
good
does
at
this.
you know?
He's so good at this. And all of a sudden, everybody's like,
Or the common thing about like, oh, wow, you really have your hands full, or teens are such hard work, like just wait till they're teens, And I actually grab that, twist it around and say the positive, like, actually, no, you know what? It is busy, but it's fun, or there's so much life in this season because there is abundant life in a toddler household. There's, so much life and energy, or, but actually teens are super wise and they're good helpers. And, so just begin to catch those and turn them around. Also, as you're scrolling Facebook and Instagram and all the other things, you're going to come across memes that are, like, oh, the man cold, or and those things actually can plant little seeds in you that will lead you to have judgment towards your spouse or your kids or yourself. And so be sure that you're just, washing those away and keeping your thought life. Just immediately declare a positive instead of that negative, to help really build your thought life. And I think we should save this one for next week.
All right, we'll save that one for next week.
All right. So again, the law of pursuit is that your heart will tend to grow fonder and more in love with the thing that you are intentionally pursuing.
Yes.
And so 3 ways to intentionally pursue your spouse and your family. Again, a common pursuit, first fruits, sharing with them first, and guarding your thought life.
That's
it.
Pick one of those. Pick one of those. I would encourage each of you listening or to this or watching this, pick one of those. And if you're a single person, pick a best friend that you want to grow that relationship. Or, hey, pick yourself. Pick the Lord. Like, I know that this is one I've been working on lately, is the list I keep of like God, these are the things that you promised, but I've been disappointed. Like, okay, I got to get away
My
from
disappointment list.
My disappointment list. I'm
How about my
traveling that
success
road.
list?
I'm traveling that road too frequently, and I need to start building the testimony list and intentionally guarding my thought life to go down the testimony list instead of the disappointment list. So you can do this with the Lord. You can do this with yourself. Just self-care. Instead of beating yourself up every day, get to the end of your day and write down 3 things you did well that day, or 3 things that you're thankful for from that day, or whatever it is. You can do these things to start changing the way you think about yourself, your self-relationship. So I don't care who you are. If you're not married, pick the Lord, pick yourself, pick a best friend, and pick one of these things: a common pursuit, the first fruits, who you share the experiences you have with first, and your thought life. Pick one of those 3 things and build on that, build with it this week. Use these tools and tell us how that changes your relationships this week.
Thank you guys for joining us. As always, please feel free to message us or comment if you have anything to add or questions about that, or any topics that you'd like to hear us talk about. We'd love some feedback and interaction. And as always, please, if this was helpful for you, go ahead and share it with your friends. And we will catch you here next week as we continue our 4 keys to great relationships. God bless you.